does it mean to scale your business? Well, I think scalability is for my business to grow faster, or for my business to do this, or and I tell them, to me, scalability is for your business to have a life of its own.
Everybody thinks they're ready for growth until growth hits them in the face. If your product is weak, scale exposes it. If your systems suck, scale collapses them. And if you're the bottleneck now, scaling just makes you the bigger bottleneck. The truth is this: scale is not the reward for building a good business. Scale is the test that shows whether you actually built one at all. And if you try to scale before you're ready, you won't grow, you'll break. This video shows you exactly why scale breaks businesses that aren't ready, and what you need to fix so growth stops creating chaos and starts creating leverage. Let's get into it. What scale actually is. So let's talk about what scale actually is, because most people confuse it with something else entirely. When you're growing a business, you're usually putting in more effort or more money to get more output. You spend more on ads, you hire a few more people, you put more time into fulfillment, and the output increases in a fairly predictable way. That's growth. Scale works differently. Scale is when you get more output without increasing your input at the same rate. You build systems, processes, and infrastructure that let your results grow faster than your effort or your costs. You might serve 10 times the customers with only twice the team. That's scale, and the thing most people never consider is that scale does not create success. It reveals whether what you built can actually handle success. People assume that once they get bigger, once customers show up, once revenue increases, everything becomes easier. What really happens is the opposite. Getting big exposes every weakness you ignored and every dependency you leaned on. The things you could hide when you had 10 customers become impossible to hide when you have 1,000. The 3 tests of scale. Every business that wants to grow without blowing up has to pass these 3 tests. If you pass them, scaling will amplify what is already working. If you fail even one of them, scaling will break everything much faster than you expect. 1. Product test. So the first test is the product test. This is the most important one, because if customers are not sticking around now, bringing more customers into the business isn't going to magically fix the problem. It actually makes the problem far more expensive. Think about what happened with Blue Apron. They spent millions on ads to acquire customers as fast as possible. People tried the service, but the retention was terrible. The recipes were inconsistent, the shipping wasn't reliable, and the overall experience just didn't create loyalty. So every new customer they acquired at a high cost would immediately leave, which pushed their acquisition costs into a place where the business could no longer sustain itself. That is what failing the product test looks like. Scale didn't help them. Scale exposed that people didn't want to stay. So here's the simple question you need to ask yourself. Do people come back? Do they buy again? Do they stay long enough to justify the cost of bringing them in? If the honest answer is no, you are not ready to scale. You need to fix retention. You need to fix the experience. You need to make the product good enough that people stay without being begged or bribed. Because if they are not staying now, they definitely won't stay when 10 times more people see the flaws. 2. Economics test. Once your product passes that test, you move to the economics test. This is where a lot of businesses fool themselves. The question is simple. Do you actually make money on each customer, or are you secretly losing money and hoping scale will save you? If every new customer puts you further in the hole, then scale is not a growth strategy. It is a countdown to bankruptcy. MoviePass is the perfect example. They offered unlimited movies for $9.95 a month. People loved it. They grew incredibly fast. But every time a customer used the service, the company lost money. When they were small, the losses looked manageable because investor cash made up the difference. But as soon as they scaled, they multiplied their losses until the whole thing collapsed. Their model was fundamentally broken, and scale just revealed that faster. This is what most founders don't understand. If your economics do not work at a small scale, they definitely will not work at a large one. You have to know your cost to acquire a customer, your cost to serve that customer, and what that customer is worth over time. If those numbers do not make sense now, scale will destroy you. But if they do make sense, scale will turn a good model into a powerful one. Once your product holds people and your economics make sense, you still have one more test. And this is the test that breaks the most companies. It is the operations test. 3. Operations test. This is where your systems, your processes, your structure, and even your personal habits as a founder get exposed. When a business is small, you can hide all kinds of inefficiency. You can respond to customer messages manually. You can personally manage every order. You can fill in the gaps through hustle. And as long as things stay small, nobody sees the cracks. But when you try to scale, all those cracks widen instantly. The Fyre Festival is the most dramatic example. They scaled the hype, they scaled the promise. They sold the tickets, they got the influencers, but they had no systems for logistics, housing, food, or security. At a small scale, that kind of oversight would have been fixable. At the scale they attempted, it turned into a global embarrassment. Scale did not create the disaster. It magnified the fact that they had no operational foundation. A more traditional example is Target's expansion into Canada. Instead of testing a few stores in Canada, they opened 124 stores almost simultaneously. They assumed that because they were huge in the US, they could just copy-paste that success. Their supply chain software wasn't ready. Data entry errors meant the system didn't know the dimensions of products. Shelves sat empty, while warehouses overflowed with goods that couldn't be shipped. They lost $2 billion and closed every single store in less than 2 years. And that brings us to a truth most founders do not want to hear. The business you run at a small scale is not the business you will run at a large scale. The identity you had as a founder has to evolve. This is why so many founders hit a ceiling they never expected. They are great builders, but scaling requires leadership. It requires documentation. It requires delegation. Many refuse to do that, and their business becomes a bottleneck wrapped around their own limitations. Evernote went through this. The founders built an incredible product, but when the company needed strong direction, systems, and focus, they struggled to transition into that role. The result was a product that got slower, buggier, and more bloated as competitors like Notion took their place. They passed the builder phase, but failed the manager and operator phase, and scale exposed the limits of that transition. So here is the central point. If your product does not hold people, scale will not help. If your economics do not work, scale will bankrupt you. Scale only works when everything underneath it already works. Once those 3 tests are passed, you can scale with confidence. But if even one of them is shaky, your priority is to strengthen that weak spot before you try scaling. Fix the product so people stay. Fix the economics so growth makes you money instead of costing you money. Fix the systems so you are not the one holding everything together manually. And once those pieces are solid, scale becomes a lever instead of a liability. So before you scale, answer this honestly. Does my product keep people around? Do my economics make sense? And can my operation handle 10 times the volume without falling apart? If you cannot say yes to all 3, your job is to fix the cracks first. Strengthen the foundation. Then scale. Because when scale finally hits, it will multiply whatever you already built. And you want that to be something solid. If this helped you, see scaling differently and avoid the mistakes most founders make. Hit subscribe. I'll be breaking down more of the lessons that actually matter when you're trying to build something that lasts.